Efwa Hirsch, a journalist and broadcaster. As someone who's lived and worked in Africa for many years, I'm fascinated by the social change and rapid economic growth on the continent. So I've travelled from West to East Africa in an effort to understand just what seismic shifts in urbanisation and industrialisation will mean for investment in the region. If you've ever tried getting around any downtown city area, you'll know it's always busy. But here on the African continent, something almost unique is happening. Africa will soon have the fastest rate of urbanisation in the world. African cities are expected to gain 24 million people each year until 2045. And by 2034, the size of Africa's workforce will be 1.1 billion. That's more than either India or China. And while Africa's infrastructure means it can't yet compete with those countries in manufacturing, that creates real opportunities for large, profitable companies to meet the needs of business supply chains and growing consumer markets. McKinsey estimates there'll be $5.6 trillion worth of African business opportunities by 2025 and $2.1 trillion of household consumption. Africa needs more large companies to power this growth. So what lies ahead?
My name is Acha Leke. I'm a senior partner with McKinsey & Company. I'm also the chairman of McKinsey's Africa practice.
So you're in a good position to have a macro view of Africa's growth prospects. What do you see for the next 10 years?
Well, we're very excited about the urbanization and demographic changes. If you combine a fast-growing, young and urbanizing population, that provides huge opportunities for businesses. I always give this example. There are more children born, more babies born in Nigeria every year than in the whole of Western Europe. So if you're a diapers company, where do you want to set up your shop, right?
How does the cost of manufacturing on the African continent compare to other emerging markets like China?
The challenge we have is we're not very productive in many of our countries, right? And so part of what we've seen and many countries do is really try to address the productivity challenge. How do you reduce costs? How do you provide power yourself versus relying on the grid? Because sometimes it's actually more expensive or you don't even get it. How do you scale up the markets, right? It's 54 countries, many of them are just too small. You need economies of scale. And the third thing is, how do you fit into the global supply chains? Because what we found is part of those countries that have grown really well are countries that have been able to have much more connected to global flows. Power is a massive issue in general for the continent. Today we still have 600 million Africans without access to electricity. But the good news is people are looking to address it across the board. I think there are a number of ways to solve the power problem. One is, and we're seeing businesses providing their own captive power. But some of the smaller businesses where you have to rely on fuel oil, you have to rely on diesel, it's multiples the cost. So that increases your eventual cost and the price you pass on to the consumer, right? And so resolving the power issue would definitely help significantly, ultimately reduce prices to the consumer.
My name is Bolaji Oshonsanya. I'm the CEO of Accela Limited. Accela is a portfolio developer of gas and power businesses. We are the first last-mile provider of gas distribution in Nigeria, and we're pioneers at that. Accela offers perhaps the widest solution locally. We carry pipeline gas, we carry compressed natural gas, and wheeling it to industrial customers in their stranded locations. We also have an aspiration to do mini LNG and an FSRU floating storage and regasification units. So we carry quite a broad suite of possible fuel solutions, and that distinguishes us actually from the other competitors in the markets.
Power is very, very important because we need to have steam to process the sugar. In the refinery, we need 50 kilowatt per ton of sugar we process. In the beginning, gas wasn't available. Over time, we had companies coming along to say, oh, we can supply you gas. So after due diligence, we chose GasLink to do the supply. By supplying us reliable gas, we're able to reduce our conversion cost and indeed improve the bottom line of the organization. Because it is half the price of alternative fuel, of course, for the same production, you can see how competitive and profitable that is.
It would be too utopian to think power is everything, but trust that power is most of it. And if we get energy into the right places, then you boost production, you increase GDP, you increase quality of life. People start to do things on their own volition, and everybody stands to benefit.
But this isn't just about traditional sources of power. One thing this continent has in abundance is sun, creating huge opportunities for solar technology. If you can find a way to harness that technology and make it scalable, it could be another important answer for Africa's domestic power needs.
Power generated by a diesel generator can cost anywhere between 38 cents to 50 cents per kilowatt hour. Solar can produce power much, much cheaper. I'm Tony Carr, CEO of Starsight. I think the provision of power across Africa, outside of South Africa, for instance, is extremely challenging. It's primarily driven by lack of infrastructure, lack of funding for infrastructure. So people are reliant on diesel generation far more than what they are in other developed parts of the world. Starsight provides a green energy solution and cooling package for the SME sector in Nigeria. General focus is on the banking space. However, we're seeing more and more demand, whether it's gas stations or whether it's a rural community that's got a milk collection station that's running 100% on diesel. And we're able to take those sites completely off diesel.
As a bank, we're trying to promote a greener society, and it has to start with us. So as a bank, over 30% of our branches are currently solar powered. Our ATM locations, our service locations are also being moved to energy efficient solutions. Following our outsourcing power to Starsight, we've been able to save over 20% monthly on how much we spend on on-grid energy and diesel cost. Also, we've been able to build an environment that is safer, that is cleaner for our staff, and that is more comfortable. We have built a framework to move the remaining branches from current conventional energy sources to solar power and more energy efficient solutions.
What Starsight has brought to us is to give us a competitive edge in the market, is to support one of our strategic pillars, which is low-cost operational excellence. Many stations rely on diesel generators, but what the Starsight offering solar panel alternative, an average station has made up to 40% cost savings. In addition to that, it's not only an economic proposition, it's also an environmental proposition, because you see now that by using solar power, we are actually reducing our carbon footprint.
It's given the population growth, the lack of infrastructure investment, similar to what we saw in the cell phone sector. Nigeria really didn't have landlines. It went straight to cell phones. We feel that that's what will happen in the power sector. We're not going to see the grid expanding we're going to see more standalone power installations delivering a sustainable, reliable power source.
Nairobi's Uhuru Park, you can see the sheer volume of people moving to and from work every day. It's like witnessing urbanization in action. And what's also apparent is their age. With 200 million people aged between 15 and 24, Africa has the youngest population in the world, and it's growing fast. With a young population and a growing labour force, that's a highly valuable asset in today's ageing world. Products and services need to change to cater to this influx of young people into cities like Nairobi. But how is retail adapting to the rapid demographic change taking place across the continent? These vendors sell products here in the market, but they increasingly have their own e-commerce businesses too. Just one example of how Africa is evolving straight from the traditional marketplace to online, skipping the big box retail model altogether.
Technology in general is completely transforming Africa. If you look, we believe the internet could have as transformative an impact on the continent as we've seen the mobile phone. When we ran some numbers, we actually sized the impact of the internet, and we think it can contribute about $300 billion to Africa's GDP in the next 10 years. That's sort of the size of South Africa.
I run a company called Shopping Internet Services. We basically build software platforms for emerging markets. There are many, many advantages for merchants in outdoor markets to apply technology to their business and actually effectively compete and outcompete organized retail. So Computer Village is the largest outdoor electronics market in West Africa. And what that means is that you basically have billions of dollars of transactions happening, on a weekly basis. We're seeing that by trying to create a virtual outdoor market that have to do a lot of innovation that speaks to the reality of the consumer. And you create experiences that aren't very common in like the West. So for example, I'm buying on a website, but at the same time, in real time, I can negotiate with the merchant, And that may sound very odd to somebody who's spent his life buying from Amazon, but for a consumer in an emerging market like Nigeria who's grown up doing that all his life, that's exciting. We've basically focused on the idea of outdoor markets, leapfrogging organized retail.
One formal retail outlet in Africa for 60,000 Africans. There's one formal retail outlet in the US for 4,000 Americans, right? So, we're still very, very informal, as we know, in the retail space. And so that's why a lot of people are leapfrogging and going straight to the internet.
While in the US we may be used to having 7-Elevens in our gas stations or Marks and Spencers in the UK, this kind of convenience retail outlet is a new concept across much of the African continent. And while e-commerce is gaining ground among young and urban consumers, there's no substitute for genuine convenience retail, allowing you to buy what you need when you need it, making this Amazon-proof.
My name is Lena Munuve. I'm the head of the retail department at Vivo Energy Kenya.
And what does Vivo do?
Vivo is the company that markets and distributes Shell-branded fuels and lubricants across Africa. Vivo Energy Group has a footprint of over 1,800 petrol stations across 15 markets in Africa, and the number is growing.
Do you see petrol stations as a significant area to grow retail opportunities?
Absolutely, absolutely. Petrol stations offer an opportunity or a platform where we are able to interact with many, many customers. Just to give you an example, across Africa on a daily basis, we have about 600,000 customers who drive onto our petrol stations.
We're sitting in a Java coffee shop in one of your Vivo petrol stations in Nairobi. Is this representative of the kind of retail business that you're setting up in your sites?
Absolutely. This is actually a very good example of a site where we have really optimized in terms of the offerings that we've given to the customers. At this location alone, we have about 10 different offers that we have put up here. We have 2 restaurants on this location, one being a KFC, which is a global brand, very well known. And the second one is Java, which I would really call a regional brand. Within this petrol station, we have a pharmacy, we have a laundromat, we have car wash. Everywhere where we have put a QSR or a quick service restaurant, we have seen the fuel volumes also go up. So that speaks to the fact that it is a concept that is being appreciated by customers, and it is something we would definitely like to do across the other petrol stations.
Like many African cities, Nairobi is seeing a growing number of people moving from rural areas to the city. Do you think this urbanizing population is going to demand more of this kind of convenience retail that you're offering at these sites?
Certainly. One key thing about urbanization is that it has led to the growth of the formal trade. As more people move to the cities, there's demand for goods. So as urbanization numbers grow, this presents a big opportunity, a big business opportunity for us. And this is one of the reasons that is really driving the non-fuel retail business, or the CRA business, that we are now investing majorly in.
What do you see for the future of physical services like this in an age where people are doing more and more of their consumption online?
I believe there's a place for e-commerce, and I also believe that there's a place for physical presence like we do have in the petrol stations. Customers are looking for one-stop shopping, which they can get online, but they would still need to drive to the physical locations, the petrol stations, to be able to get their fuels and to get their lubricants. So to the extent that that need cannot be met online, and to the extent that they would still need to physically drive to a service station to get the fuels and lubricants, then I think the physical location still remains relevant for the customers and a place where they can actually do their shopping.
What does it mean for business? If businesses looking to position themselves in African markets, how can they adapt?
Today, Africa is the fastest urbanizing region in the world. There are 24 million Africans moving to cities every year. And that growth in the workforce, 80% of that growth is going to be in urban regions. That comes along with some challenges. Are our cities ready to receive these millions of people who are coming to our cities? And in many cases, we're in Nairobi now, in many places we know that we're not ready. So what do we need to do, if put it another way? The opportunity is, what do we need to do to be ready?
I'm Ed Kerathe, and I run a business called Akon, which is a real estate development and management company that I started in 2001.
So what is Akon's focus in the market?
So when we started, we agreed that the first thing is to look at historically what Akon had really done well and where was the biggest opportunity to deploy capital and make a difference, and decided that housing was going to be a massive opportunity.
My name's Deborah Erb. I'm a managing director in the SME finance group at OPIC. When I joined OPIC about, it was 15 years ago, I joined OPIC. It was specifically to develop a housing program because housing is highly developmental. Affordable housing in every country in the world is a problem. And I think that the mandate in developing countries has been supply. Just build as many houses as you can, as fast as you can, without respect to quality. Our job at OPIC is to work with companies that have a philosophy of delivering quality and quantity.
We were clear that what we wanted to do is housing, young people, and rental. So with that clarity, as we got into the segment, we then realized that actually you've got to segment this market. It's not homogeneous. You can't talk of youth as a homogeneous market. And the reason is the needs of students and the needs of young professionals, for example, they are completely different. So we realized that we'll do student housing, later we'll address the young professionals. The reason we started with students is because it's a more finite market, but it's also very well defined. You know where to find them. You know, they're in universities, so you can build close to those universities. And the need in university was huge because if you look at this, Kenya, we had about 24,000 university students in 1990. By 2016, it was 560,000.
It's a huge
That's
increase.
a phenomenal growth. Every university invested in academic facilities, but none of them put any accommodation. So there's been no investment over 25 years in accommodation.
The problem that a lot of developers have faced, and we've seen it in action in developing countries, is they don't take the time to understand the niches in those markets. They just think it's infinite demand. I'll push it out and anyone will buy it. In the case of Acorn, we understood that the demographic was definitely going to be more the entry-level young professional or the students that have a lifestyle expectation. And so that affects the design of the units and the location of the building, the amenities, everything.
So the solution that you've devised so far is the Kwetu brand. Tell me about the vision and what you're actually building for these students to meet their needs.
Yeah, so it's our first purpose-built student accommodation where we provide them not only a safe and secure environment, but also other amenities that they need for student life. And really, housing is not about accommodation. Housing is about creating communities. And when you think about it that way, it's a more holistic approach than thinking about providing a bed.
You arrived in Nairobi to start your degree.
Yes.
And tell me the plans that you made to find somewhere to live at first.
Okay, at first when I came to Nairobi, I got a place, well, it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be.
What was the quality of the accommodation? Was it appropriate and convenient? Were you happy there?
We used to stay 6 people in one room.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I know. We're sharing one bathroom, one toilet. I wasn't very comfortable. Plus, the quality of the food really became difficult for me. So I had to look for somewhere else to go stay.
So where do you live now?
Currently, I'm staying in Kwetu apartments.
And how has that experience been for you?
It's just been a wonderful place. Really, I take it as my own home because, first of all, it provides me with everything I need. It's not only a place that we can go and sleep. Really, they have a gym, first of all. That's the most exciting thing that I love in that building. Then, other than that, they have a social area and we have a TV you can always go watch at any time. It just makes us bond, yeah? It becomes like not just a family.
I'm not interested in working with companies who want to come in and score quickly and move on. We're looking for companies who want to build a professional, long-term presence and brand in a market that helps raise the standards for the entire market. And that's what a company like Acorn can do. It provides a demonstration effect of best practices for everyone else that comes after them.
And what about other things that you need? Are they available in the Kwetu building?
Yes, on the ground floor we have a supermarket, we have a pharmacy, we have a salon for both female and male, we have a cafeteria. If you don't feel like cooking for yourself, you can always access the cafeteria for food. And they offer me a bus, and the bus will take me to school at whatever time. So it's very convenient for us.
Quality has been always a very big thing for us. I think it's also the thing that Helios saw in what Acorn projects, good quality, well-built, sturdy buildings, so the basic quality is in there. But we've gone way beyond that now. We've started looking at things, for example, like life and fire safety. So we have put in systems at Kwetu that actually meet US and European fire safety code, which is way above the fire safety code for Kenya. We have the first residential buildings in Kenya that have full sprinkler systems and fully addressable fire alarm systems.
But you've also obviously found a way of offering it at a price point that students in Kenya can afford. Is that an important part of the vision, to take a concept and make it something that's accessible for the demographic that needs it here?
we don't look at it purely from what you're paying in rent. We look at the whole entire, your cost of living, and we try to package something that brings that cost of living down, not just one aspect, rent. And that's the reason you find like we are offering things like the gym, the Wi-Fi, and those amenities and conveniences, coming up with a solution that is actually holistic and is packaged and purpose-built for students has been a very vital part of what we are doing with Kwetu and what we are doing with student accommodation, and indeed what we will do with other types of accommodation.
Do you think you'll stay in Kwetu until you finish your university time?
In fact, I wish there's going to be another residential area for people who finish university to stay there, because I don't think there's any reason whatsoever that will make me leave Kwetu.
It sounds like you're sold for life.
Yes, we understand they're targeted to students, but they actually could be converted to a micro apartment type of an arrangement for young professionals or young couples, for example.
Are there other demographics to which this model could apply?
We are definitely looking at young professionals, but we are going to look at starter homes and you can keep going up that ladder as urbanization, you know, from starter homes, multifamily. So the segment is actually very wide. For us, housing is where we want to really focus, because that's where we see the biggest opportunity.
By 2034, the size of Africa's workforce will be greater than India's and China's. And unlike anywhere else, it's overwhelmingly young and urban. That presents challenges, but it also creates real opportunities to be at the forefront of Africa's unstoppable future growth.